We're getting straight into the cooking today, and this is one of my favourite pasta dishes. The sauce is made by mixing fresh tomatoes, garlic, olive oil and some of the water that the pasta cooks in. The olive oil comes from a tin of tuna. You do need tuna in olive oil. Brine or spring water won't be the same. There's something about tuna infused oil. When it mixes with the garlic and fresh tomatoes, you get the most beautiful, light, delicate sauce. It is just lovely. This isn't a thick, heavy sauce.
This recipe serves two, and you'll need 2 medium-sized saucepans. We'll start with pine nuts, and these are definitely optional because they aren't cheap. Get them toasting over a medium heat and set a timer for a couple of minutes. It's tragic if they burn. Slice 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. The pine nuts are done, so set them to one side. I've got 250 grams of good quality cherry tomatoes. It's best to halve them so they break down quickly, but sometimes I just stab them with a knife and squash them in the pan. Wash and strip the stems from 200 grams of black kale, aka dinosaur kale. I use my hands rather than a knife as I find it quicker and easier. Keep the leaves whole because we're going to blanch them briefly later. Black kale lasts for a while in the fridge, but sometimes I freeze it. I wash and strip out the stems, then stuff it into a bag and put it in the freezer. It's actually better this way. It stays really fresh and it's always ready to go because I've already done the work of preparing it. Empty the oil from a tin of tuna into one of the pans and turn the heat on low. In with the garlic. You don't need to wait for the oil to heat up. In fact, it's better if it goes into a cold pan as it's less likely to burn. I've gone for sliced garlic, but you can chop it more finely if you prefer. The tomatoes join the garlic. There's always one that makes a bid for freedom and another that ends up on the hob. I should probably just use my hands like a normal person would. Halved tomatoes will break down fairly quickly. If you've gone for the stab and squash method, let the tomatoes soften, then use a wooden spoon to squash them against the side of the pan. But be careful, sometimes they squirt. While the tomatoes are cooking, fill and boil your kettle, then pour the water into the other saucepan. We're going to blanch the kale and it doesn't need too long in the water as it will get cooked again in the sauce later on. Add the kale to the water and wait for it to come back up to a boil. Usually it's softened by this point, but if your kale is on the tougher side, give it a few more minutes. Black kale is forgiving and thankfully quite hard to overcook. Once it's done, use a slotted spoon or tongs to remove it from the pan and set to one side. Don't throw the water away as we'll use it to cook the pasta, and I'll add some salt to it now. I probably should have done this earlier. This recipe calls for 60 grams of pasta per person. I know that sounds stingy, but we've got kale, a 200 gram tin of tuna and a big punnet of tomatoes. It makes a decent sized portion and I've never felt shortchanged. Normally I'd use a short shape like penne or fusilli, but I've run out and spaghetti works just fine in this dish. Rinse the kale and make sure to run a good amount of cold water over it. We're going to wring out the water and I've burnt my hands a few times when I haven't properly rinsed it. It's surprising how it hangs on to heat. Roughly chop the leaves. They look so small once they've been cooked. Scoop out some of the pasta water and set it to one side. Check to see if the pasta's done, then drain it into a colander. Now we'll finish the sauce. The kale will go into the tomatoes along with some of the pasta water. We want enough to loosen the sauce, but not so much that we make it watery. Add a little at a time and keep stirring. You can always add more later. Regarding the tuna, I use tuna steak in olive oil by M&S. It's about £2.50, but the tin is quite big. Sainsbury's has similar tins and Waitrose too. Tuna and olive oil is definitely more expensive than tuna and brine, so I swill out the tin with pasta water to get every last bit out. This will make the tin hot, so make sure you don't burn yourself. Now we season. I start with 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt and some black pepper. If you've got table salt, use less as it's saltier. There's no cheese in this dish, no anchovies, bacon or anything salty, so you want to get the seasoning right as it makes a big difference. It needs a tiny bit more pasta water and now I'll taste it. It usually needs a bit more salt. Stir the pasta gently so the tuna doesn't break up too much, then add the pasta. As plates of pasta go, this isn't super carby, which is great for my husband Cole, who's type 1 diabetic. I'm using whole wheat pasta from Garofalo as it doesn't have that strong taste and heavy texture that brown pasta sometimes has. In terms of fibre, it's got more than double the amount of Garofalo's regular spaghetti. Hopefully you won't need to do this, but I'm weighing the pasta because Cole needs to calculate the carbs to take the right amount of insulin. I know the weight of my pans, so it's easy to divide the pasta into 2. Right, top with a tiny squeeze of lemon, then scatter over the toasted pine nuts if you used them, and you're done. The cherry tomato sauce is light and sweet with bites of rich flaky tuna. It's all tied together with a big hit of garlic, starchy pasta water and a squeeze of lemon. You can absolutely use white pasta, but if you've been thinking about switching to whole wheat, this is a good recipe to try. I've always thought that this sauce works well with whole wheat pasta.
I think this dish takes 25 minutes tops, so it's a good weeknight dish. And if you've got frozen black kale, it'll take no more than 20 minutes. I've been cooking this dish for years. We chose our favourite recipes for the About page on our blog, and this was my pick. It's one of those dishes where it's really simple, but so much greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, well, if you try it, leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching and see you soon.